Hey everyone, how's it going? Sorry if I sound a little weird, I've been dealing with a really nasty cold for the past few days. But why is there blood on the mirror? Oh, that's unrelated. Well, it took longer than the Rick and Morty vid with Ruins, but we're finally here to talk about her. For this character spotlight, we're going to talk about one of the first characters in comics who started out in animation. Yes, even before Harley Quinn. Today, we're going to talk about Spider-Man's amazing friend, Angelica Jones, aka Firestar. Hey, last minute add-on here. I meant to put this in the actual video, but again, not 100%, so I wound up forgetting. Giving you all a trigger warning, as I will be mentioning some serious topics regarding abuse. If this bugs you, I recommend skipping the video. Firestar was created in 1981 for Marvel's animated series Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, a series that had Marvel's favorite web-slinger, well, former favorite. Originally, the show was going to have Spider-Man team up with X-Men's Iceman and the Fantastic Four's Human Torch, but due to rights issues, the network releasing the show, NBC, had vetoed that, proving the true archenemy of the Fantastic Four isn't Doctor Doom or Galactus, but IP rights. So they created Firestar to fill in the role. Sure, they could have brought in an existing character like Nova, Firebird, or hell, Toro from the Jim Hammond Human Torch, but I guess they wanted to avoid any repeats. Now, the show started off as a team already established, and not much was known about Firestar outside of her being an X-Men with fellow teammate Iceman. It wouldn't be until Season 2's episode, A Firestar is Born, and Season 3's The Origin of the Spider's Friends, the X-Men adventure, where we learn her full backstory. Like many mutants, Angelica Jones' powers developed during puberty. Insert obvious what's happening in my body joke here. Unbeknownst to her, her powers manifested around her and causing accidents wherever she went, leading to, of course, the obvious bullying and teasing. Though when she finally realized she had mutant powers, she began to practice and learn exactly what her powers were all about. She had the ability to manipulate heat, conjure flames, and flight, and after saving her father's life and thwarting some bullies, she would be met by the X-Men and spent a few years honing her skills. Then she left for college, met a boy who ended up becoming a cyborg, lost her job as a lab assistant, and ended up teaming up with Iceman and starting a new team with fellow hero Spider-Man, where they fight crime, deal with everyday life, and possibly be in a relationship with both her teammates. So I'll take on polyamorous relationships or just inconsistent writing. You make the call! The series would last for 3 seasons, but leave a massive legacy as Firestar would make a leap into comics in Uncanny X-Men issue 193 in 1985, where surprisingly she started out as an antagonist against the X-Men as a member of the mutant team, the Hellions, who, like the X-Men, are young mutants who were trained in a school. However, they were trained by Emma Frost, who, though is seen more as a heroic character nowadays, back in the day was a villain, known as the White Queen of the Hellfire Club. Despite being on the team, Angelica didn't have a choice. In the main Marvel universe, Angelica had a much tougher life, as along with being bullied, she also came from a family that, though loving, did struggle as her father was the only one capable of supporting them. As she was still in school, her mom wasn't in the picture and her grandmother was too sickly to assist, leading to the family to move a lot, and because there was no internet, making and keeping friends wasn't likely. All she had was her grandmother, who would always tell her that she was special. When she got to high school, then like the show, unbeknownst to her, her powers began to manifest, and would deal with weird, unexplained accidents, each one getting stranger than the last, and causing her more stress. This stress, along with the aforementioned bullying, would eventually lead to her having a literal meltdown and discovering her powers. But before she could tell her family, her grandmother passed away, and when she tried to confide in her father, he became distant, not able to understand her. Angelica's father would be met by Emma Frost, who revealed to them that she was a mutant and convinced them to enroll her into her mutant school. At first it was fine, as she learned more about her powers, which, unlike the animated series that had to be fire-based, her powers were based off of microwave radiation. Though she was able to use her powers very similar to the show, like flight and generating blasts from her hands. Unfortunately, Emma, seeing her as a valuable asset, began manipulating her both mentally and emotionally by using her psychic powers, and later get the help from fellow Hellion Empath, who was, well, an empath. I mean, I know a lot of early characters had some on-the-nose names, but couldn't even try for something unique. Straight up just say what his power is. It didn't help that Emma isolated Angelica from the other students and prevented possible relationships, making her feel that her and Empath were the only ones that she could truly trust. Keep in mind, Emma Frost is an actual parent. Let that sink in. Empath, though, would go rogue and manipulate Firestar into fighting the X-Men, along with the rest of the team. But after the assistance of fellow Hellion Thunderbird, later changed his name to Warpath, was able to snap her out out of it and out of the control of Empath, but unfortunately not Emma Frost, as they weren't aware of her part in the manipulation. Plus, due to the past with her father, she began to view Emma as a surrogate parental figure, despite the signs that she was obviously involved, or at least had knowledge of it. It's a pretty tragic and sadly very real thing that can happen to people, though this chapter of her life would come to an end in her own mini solo series where Emma would manipulate her to become her personal assassin, but was derailed as Randall Chase, a bodyguard that Emma assigned to Angelica to keep her in check, immediately grew to despise Emma and would try to tell Angelica the truth of what her surrogate mother was doing. And though he was successful, it unfortunately lead to Randall's death. Angelica would finally leave Emma in the Hellfire Club and officially begin her heroic career facing off against classic X-Men foes like Mystique and saving kidnapped mutants. Firestar would meet another hero I could do a spotlight on, Night Thrasher, and become a founding member of the New Warriors, a team that she became most known for in comics. Firestar didn't want to join the team at first, but grew to care for them and would find the kind of friends that she was hoping to find in the Hellions, and Emma Frost, who they would face off against during the original run. She would also start a relationship with fellow member Marvel Boy, later change the name to Justice, though it would get complicated as he would get arrested after accidentally killing his abusive father. But like Night Thrasher, that's a discussion for its own video. The abridged version is that they were able to overcome this problem and would make this relationship work out for most of the run. Later she would face off another demon from her past, Empath, who kind of like Droog from the Eternals film, brainwashed an entire village. The fight would lead to her finally letting go of her past as a Hellion and get a new suit. The new suit ain't bad, but not my favorite. I feel it emphasizes fire, which, as a reminder, that wasn't her powers in the comics. Firestar would go on with the New Warriors, but would team up with other heroes like her old partner Spider-Man during the storyline Maximum Carnage. She would also become a champion of victims of abuse and manipulation, like how in one story Firestar would track down a man who assaulted one of her few non-superpowered friends and bring him to justice. However, near the end of the New Warriors, Angelica along with Justice would begin to start settling down and even consider getting married, which would be all fine and dandy if it wasn't for the fact that Angelica was only 18. Yes, it's the legal age, but still pretty freaking young, and to consider getting married and starting a family. There would be setbacks though, being that they got offered to join the Avengers, which at first she didn't really want to do. As mentioned, she was hoping to settle down with Justice, but the other setback being that her powers actually were making her sterile, and if she used her powers any further, it could cause even more serious damage. But more on that in a bit. She would eventually agree to join the Avengers with Justice, but it didn't have a smooth start, as the Wasp, as a sign of good faith, made her a new suit, but she found the suit too revealing and uncomfortable. They were able to salvage it by making alterations to show less, and to me, this was kind of the worst suit. It once again focused more on the fire theme than heat, but even more so by adding some more flames and taking the admittedly cool yellow goggles and replacing them with a mask that I kept mistaking as paint. Hank Pym would actually do a better job with first impressions, as he helped Firestar handle her powers and possibly give her a chance to undo the damage her powers caused on her. During this time in the team, her and Justice would constantly be unsure if they actually were worthy to be on the Avengers, but each mission would prove otherwise. However, they would leave the team, and Angelica would once again slow down on being a hero and even go to college. Unfortunately, a year in, her and Justice would part ways. Angelica would realize that she wasn't really ready to commit and just went with it because she loved Justice and didn't want to lose him. And luckily, this wasn't an ugly breakup. They would talk it out, and by the end of it, they'd be on pretty good terms. Next time we would see her, it'd be during the events of Civil War and the heroes fighting over the Registration Act. Instead of joining either Iron Man's Pro-Registration Act and become a tool of the government, or Captain America's Anti-Registration Act and become a fugitive, she would finally quit and finish college. This would lead to, well, Marvel's Sex in the City. I'm not kidding. Thanks to the popularity of that show, Marvel would release Marvel Divas, where Angelica, along with Monica Rambeau, Black Cat, and Patsy Walker, formerly the hero Hellcat, would meet up and become friends and roommates. I don't have much to say about this series itself, but the biggest factor regarding Angelica's life would be affected as she would learn that her powers had caused more damage, as now she was diagnosed with breast cancer. Her friends would stay by her side all the way through, and thanks to chemotherapy, she would be in remission. Luckily, Hank Pym would once again help preventing this from happening again, but Angelica would move back home with her father and try to keep it easy for a while, though she would officially return to superheroing as a member of the Young Allies, and immediately things would get complicated, as once again her past would return to haunt her, like Emma Frost trying to recruit her, and though she reformed, Angelica wouldn't accept this offer or be ready to forgive her, and Justice regarding their past relationship did kind of get muddied up a bit during a storyline where they had to fight younger versions of themselves, but by the end, were able to make things work out still. Funny enough, things got easier for her after she went to Hell. After being associated with the team in her anime counterpart being a member, Angelica would join the X-Men team as a teacher of, at the time, Jean Grey School, with her first day leading her to go to Hell to fight demonic pirates with the at the time dead Nightcrawler, and also lead to the first time in the main universe team up with Spider-Man and Iceman. She would mostly be in the background after that, and stay there until the Krakoa era, where, what about the New Warriors comic during the Outlaws event? Book never got made, so not going to talk about it. Anyway, she'd become a major player again during the Krakoa era, where she gained new control of her powers thanks to the Island Nation, along with a new suit that is probably my favorite. It's a cool update to her original, and gives more of an energy vibe than fire. She joined Cyclops' team and stayed in New York, which you saw in that crappy Dark Web storyline, up until the end of the Krakoa era, even teaming up with Emma Frost to save both mutant and humankind. As for other media and universes, it's pretty scarce. In the original Ultimate Universe, Firestar was actually a longtime Spider-Man supporting character, Liz Allen, who actually started out being anti-mutant, but after learning she was one, would lead to a redemption arc. Her powers are more like the animated version, where she has pyrokinesis, and would start out with a team up with Spider-Man and Iceman, but would be last seen working with S.H.I.E.L.D. on a new team called Ultimate X, a team that was supposed to be a big deal, but then Secret Wars happened and they end the original Ultimate Universe. As for TV, she would return to animation as one of the mutants in the Sentinel-dominated future in Wolverine the X-Men, and in the younger kids-oriented Marvel Superhero Squad series. As for video games, she was an assist character in the Spider-Man and Venom Maximum Carnage game, a possible boss fight if you chose Iron Man's side in Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2, and Superhero Squad Online. So yeah, that's Firestar, the first animated hero who broke into comics, and though it wasn't as smooth as for those who came after her, she would always be a part of Marvel's legacy of heroes. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates. What do you think of Firestar? Let me know in the comments. Later.